All right, so in case you might have joined the webinar a little late, my name is Emily Hughes, and I'm one of the platform representatives on the BDC team. And so today I will be going over authorized access to recover adult cohort on BDC. So how to get access to the data, what to do once you get access to the data, how to explore it, and some tools that are available for you to use. So Biodata Catalyst uses authorization from the Database of Genotypes and Phenotypes, or dbGaP. If you're not familiar with dbGaP, this is a public repository for individual phenotype, exposure, genotype, and sequence data. And in order to obtain access to a dataset, researchers must go through a data access request process. So they will submit a data access request, this is reviewed, and if it is approved, then the researcher has been authorized to download the dataset that they are authorized to for their research. So because Biodata Catalyst uses authorization from dbGaP, you do need to have an active or an authorization from dbGaP to access the dataset. So in order to access Recover, you'll need to submit a data access request. Now, Biodata Catalyst has some resources to help with these data access requests. And so I've included a link here on the slides, and I'm sure it will be shared in the chat as well, on some template documentation or some instructions to help you submit a successful data access request. So once you receive access or get authorization to access the data, what can you do? The sort of sister tool or sister platform to Picture Open Access is called Picture Authorized Access. So in Picture Authorized Access, you can do a lot of the same things. You can search for terms of interest to discover variables that are related to your research project. Once you find a variable, you can apply filters or apply inclusion criteria and narrow down a cohort or select a cohort of participants. Once you create the cohort, you could review the counts of participants that meet the criteria you've specified. And additionally, once you sort of have shaped your cohort in a way or applied all the inclusion criteria that is necessary, you can save your query or save your cohort to go back to in the future. Additionally, you can visualize results about, or visualize your cohort a bit more to learn more about the participant subset. And you can export participant level data. So by exporting this data, it's in a statistically ready format or a Python or R data frame or CSV file. So this is a format that is in it's a very simple format that's sort of analysis ready and allows you to focus on your research rather than managing or manipulating raw data files. So I do want to mention that Picture Authorized Access is slightly different than Open Access. So whereas Open Access was open to the public, Picture Authorized Access requires login. So you will need an ERA Commons account in order to log into Authorized Access. Additionally, as I mentioned earlier, to view the data, researchers must have an active data access request or DAR for that data set. Whereas in open access, the stigmatizing or potentially sensitive variables were not filterable. All variables are filterable in authorized access. You are a researcher that has been authorized to access the data, so you can access all of the variables. And export is allowed in authorized access, where you can only retrieve counts in open access. I did want to take a quick second to point out that Picture also can be used with code. So there is an API or an application programming interface that is available in Python or R that can be used. So if you're a bit more technically savvy or prefer to use code to build your queries or do searches, this could be a good option for you. You will need a specific token for authentication. So just to say, I am who I am, this is what I have access to, and then you're able to use the API. We do have example Jupyter notebooks and our studio files that are available on the BDC analysis workspaces. So here on the slides, I've provided links to the picture workspaces or projects that are available on 7bridges and Terra for you to review. And it's essentially example code that you can run on your own that teaches you how to use the Picture API. And I'm excited to announce that we do have example code with the Recover adult cohort. So it's a Recover specific example. So if you're curious about that, I would encourage you to go check out those example notebooks as well. All right, so let's go ahead and hop into the live demo of authorized access. So this is what it looks like when you navigate to Picture Authorized Access. You'll see this is a bit different than Open Access because you do have to log in. Typically, you would select Login with ERA Commons, but because I'm a developer on Biodata Catalyst, I'm going to use this developer login. So one moment. All right, so once I'm logged in, you'll see it looks and feels very similar to Picture Open Access. So you see your search bar here, as well as the summary of the studies. So because I'm a developer, I have a lot more studies than you may, but this will reflect how many studies you have access to based on your authorization to access them. So based on your dbGaP DARs or if there are publicly available data sets. So let me go here and I'll go ahead and do a search for the derived PASC score, similar to before. And so again, if you've joined recently, the PASC score is related to symptoms of long COVID and is a way to determine PASC positive or PASC negative. This score is developed based on a publication that was recently released that actually took a look at frequently reported symptoms from long COVID. So if you're curious about learning more about that, I'm happy to share the link with you. So again, we see here that we've got quite a few variables. My screen may look different than yours depending on your access, but I'm going to go ahead and narrow it down to the Recover adult cohort again. So here I can see PASC score at baseline. Again, if I'm curious about learning more, I can click on the row to see more information about it. But let's go ahead and apply a filter. And now I'm going to try something different. So based on the publication that this score is based on, after reviewing the publication, I determined that or learned that their threshold or their cutoff score for PASC that they identified in that paper was 12. So let's go ahead and filter to a minimum of 12 and a maximum of 34. So here on the results panel, we can see that my added filter or my filter to 12 or greater for the PASC score at baseline was added here. And here we can see that I have an exact count of participants now. So it's 2,790. So it's no longer obfuscated because I have access to this data set. I can do the same for follow-up 1 as well. So again, as I add a filter with a minimum of 12 to a max of 34 for both baseline and follow-up 1, I see that it's 1,457 participants. Let's again just quickly add our head pain related variables or phenotypes, since that's my area of interest with my research. So I can see these head pain now related variables here. So head pain at the time of survey. If I click filter, I can see, this looks slightly different than the continuous filter because it's a categorical variable. So I'm going to select only the category has symptom now, because for my research, let's say I'm interested in only those that have reported head pain. So I can click add filter. And again, I'm refining my cohort. I'm getting narrower here. So I've combined my PASC score at baseline, follow-up 1, as well as head pain now. So there are 659 PASC positive at baseline and follow-up 1 that reported head pain at baseline. All right, so let's say that I have refined my cohort enough. This is enough information for me. I again have the option to check out the variable distributions to get a better understanding of what information or what distribution these participants are. So here I can see, there are 659 that have this symptom now or have head pain now. Um, there are the distributions of the PASC scores at baseline and follow-up one, so I can get a feel for the change in distribution over time as well. Once I'm ready, I can go ahead and select and package data. So here is where you actually begin your data export. So I can click the package data button and actually save my dataset ID or save my cohort for future reference. So I'll say recovered demo and save the dataset ID. I will point out quickly that I had mentioned that to use the picture API, you will need a token or a personalized token that you can get from the API page here at this area down here.